Picture a house that turns the heat down before anyone feels cold enough to reach for the dial. A robot that starts cleaning the exact room that's about to get messy, before a single crumb hits the floor. A ring on your finger that flags a bad night's sleep before you even feel tired. None of this is guesswork dressed up as marketing. These are real products, available right now, mostly through Amazon, built specifically to notice patterns a human would take weeks to consciously spot. Most gadgets on the market still work the same simple way. You ask, they answer. You tap, they respond. The devices on this list work differently. They spend their first days quietly studying a routine, a heartbeat, a room, or a habit. And then they start acting on what they've learned without waiting to be asked again. That shift, from responding to anticipating, is quietly becoming the real dividing line in consumer technology, even if most people shopping for one of these gadgets never think about it in those terms. What follows are 15 gadgets that don't just respond when you ask something of them. They watch, they learn, and more often than most people expect, they act first. Stick around, because the first one on this list is a thermostat that quietly rewired what smart home even means. And by the end, you'll see why prediction, not reaction, is quietly becoming the whole point of modern hardware. Number 15. The Google Nest Learning Thermostat. Priced at roughly $249 to $279, this thermostat spends its first week or two on the wall simply paying attention. It notices when people leave for work, when they come home, which rooms run cold at night, and which afternoons call for a few extra degrees. After that short learning period, it starts adjusting on its own, with no schedule ever typed into an app. The everyday habit it replaces is the constant temperature negotiation, reaching for a phone or a wall panel to nudge things up or down, morning and night, every single day. Nest ends that negotiation by predicting what a household wants before anyone in it has consciously decided. It's a small, unglamorous box on the wall, and that's exactly why it's such a good opening example. Prediction doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it just looks like a room that's already the right temperature when you walk into it, with nobody in the house able to point to the exact moment they taught it how they like to live. Number 14. The Robotics Saros Z70. At around $1,299, this is a robotic vacuum and mop with an extending mechanical arm that reaches into corners, lifts over doorway thresholds, and works around clutter that stops cheaper robots cold. It builds a detailed map of a home and uses that map to decide on its own when and where cleaning actually needs to happen. The chore it replaces isn't just vacuuming, it's the mental overhead of remembering that vacuuming needs to happen at all. Saros Z70 handles that decision internally, running through an empty house and reporting back only when something needs a human call. It's the strongest clean before I even thought about it story on this list. And that extending arm is the detail that pushes it from appliance into something that behaves a little more like a small household robot with its own judgment. For a price that rivals a used car, it's buying back hours that most people never realize they're spending on a chore they didn't choose to think about. Number 13. The Amazon Echo Show 21. Priced at around $400, this is a large format smart display built to sit at the center of a kitchen or living room, surfacing calendars, routines, reminders, and smart home controls before anyone thinks to ask for them. It learns the rhythm of a household and starts pushing the right information forward at the right moment in the day, whether that's a delivery arriving, a commute about to get worse, or a reminder that dinner needs to start soon. It replaces the phone's role as a household bulletin board, the habit of pulling out a screen to check what's next, who's coming over, or whether the front door got locked. Echo Show 21 puts that information directly in view, timed to when it's actually useful. It behaves less like a screen and more like a home that's quietly keeping track of everyone in it, which is precisely the kind of ambient intelligence science fiction has been promising for decades. The size is deliberate, too big enough to read from across a kitchen, so nobody has to walk up close and squint just to catch what the household already needs to know. 3 gadgets in, and a pattern is already forming homes that manage themselves before anyone has to ask. Number 12 takes that same instinct and straps it directly to a wrist. Number 12. The Ringcon Gen 2 Air. Somewhere between about $199 and $299, this smart ring tracks heart rate, blood oxygen, respiratory rate, skin temperature, and sleep architecture continuously, without a screen and without the daily charging routine a smartwatch demands. It replaces the phone's role as a health dashboard, that morning habit of opening an app just to see how the night actually went. Rincon instead builds a private baseline over weeks, then quietly flags anything that drifts from it, often before a person consciously feels off. Nobody glancing at someone's hand would guess it's doing this kind of continuous physiological forecasting. It just looks like jewelry, which is exactly the kind of camouflage that makes it feel more advanced, not less. No screen also means no battery drain from constant notifications, which is exactly why people who tried and abandoned a smartwatch keep this one on for weeks at a time. Number 11. The Withings ScanWatch 2. Priced at around $300 and up, ScanWatch 2 looks like an ordinary analog watch, with a small display tucked discreetly into the dial. Underneath that traditional face sits an egg, an oxygen sensor, and continuous temperature tracking, working the entire time without ever demanding attention. The watch collects readings all day and all night, quietly building a running picture of a person's baseline health long before any single reading would look alarming on its own. For people who want predictive health monitoring without wearing something that visibly announces it, ScanWatch 2 replaces the phone's health app outright, hiding genuinely advanced sensing inside a watch face built to look decades older than the technology inside it. That contrast between old-world design and next-generation prediction is exactly the kind of detail a science fiction writer would invent on purpose, not stumble into by accident. It's the kind of watch a grandparent could wear at a family dinner without a single person at the table suspecting it's forecasting anything at all. Number 10. The Plaud Notepin. At around $159 to $179 plus a subscription, Notepin clips to a collar or sits quietly on a desk, continuously recording meetings and conversations. Then using AI to produce structured summaries with action items already pulled out. It replaces the phone's voice memo app and, more importantly, the hours normally spent turning a recording into something usable afterward. For anyone whose calendar is packed back to back, Notepin remembers the conversation so the person in it doesn't have to split attention between listening and writing things down. It's a small device solving a problem most people didn't realize they could outsource remembering reliably without ever picking up a pen. The pen doesn't just record. It decides what mattered in a conversation before the person wearing it has even left the room. 10 gadgets down, and the story keeps circling back to the same idea: devices that remember, sense, and act ahead of a request instead of waiting for one. Notice too how the price tags on this list have almost nothing to do with how predictive a gadget actually feels. Some of the cheapest entries here anticipate a person's needs just as well as anything wearing a four-figure price. Number 9 takes that same philosophy and points it at conversation itself. Number 9. The Ray-Ban Meta Gen 2 Smart Glasses. At around $299 to $379 and up depending on lens and frame, these look identical to a premium pair of sunglasses. Built inside is a high-resolution camera, open ear speakers, a microphone array, and an AI assistant that can see what the wearer is looking at and respond immediately. The phone tasks replaced here are broad photography, hands-free calls, music, quick lookups, even live translation, all without ever pulling a phone out of a pocket. It's the gadget most people end up wearing the longest each day, precisely because it never feels like a gadget at all. It doesn't announce itself as futuristic. It just quietly removes the reflex to reach for a phone, wrapped inside something that looks exactly like ordinary sunglasses. Because the assistant can already see what the wearer is looking at, it often answers a question before the wearer has finished deciding how to phrase it. Number 8. The Time Kettle W4 Pro. At around $299 to $400 depending on configuration, the W4 Pro is a pair of translation earbuds. Two people each wear one, speak normally, and hear the other's words translated in real time, with an offline mode covering the languages travelers rely on most. The phone task eliminated here is significant: no propping a device on a table, no passing a phone back and forth, no breaking the natural rhythm that makes a conversation feel human rather than mechanical. For frequent travelers and international business owners, this is a gadget that earns daily use almost immediately. It turns "we don't speak the same language" from a hard stop into a minor technical detail. handled quietly by two small earbuds anticipating the next sentence before it's even finished. Offline mode matters just as much as the translation itself, since it means the prediction keeps working in the exact places where a data signal usually doesn't. Number 7. The Furbo Mini 360. Somewhere between about $100 and $200. This rotating pet camera dispenses treats and sends AI-driven alerts for barking, unusual movement, or a pet wandering somewhere it shouldn't, watching an entire room instead of a single fixed corner. It learns what counts as ordinary pet behavior over time, which is exactly what lets it stay quiet through a normal afternoon and only speak up when something actually breaks the pattern. The habit it replaces is the anxious mid-meeting phone check, pulling out a screen just to peek at a live feed, then doing it again 20 minutes later out of pure habit. Furbo does the watching itself and only interrupts when something genuinely needs attention. For anyone who's ever wished they could split themselves in two, one half at work and one half at home keeping watch. This is about as close as that wish currently gets. The camera essentially predicts which moments actually deserve attention and quietly ignores the hundreds of ordinary ones that don't. 7 gadgets remain, and the theme keeps sharpening from prediction to something closer to reflexes devices that react before a person even finishes deciding what they want. Number 6. Hands that reflex to a camera. Number 6. The DJI Osmo Pocket 3. At around $449, the Osmo Pocket 3 is a pocket-sized gimbal camera with a 1-inch sensor capable of stabilized, cinema-quality footage most smartphones simply can't match, especially in low light or fast motion. Its smart stabilization anticipates movement before it happens, correcting for shake in real time. The phone task it replaces is video capture itself the instinct to pull out a phone for a shot that ends up shaky or poorly exposed indoors. Osmo Pocket 3 is small enough to carry everywhere, yet delivers footage close to what a dedicated camera crew would produce. It's proof that predictive engineering doesn't need to be flashy. Sometimes the most futuristic thing in someone's pocket is smaller than the phone sitting right next to it, correcting for a stumble or a sudden turn before the footage ever shows a hint of shake. Number 5. The Insta360 Flow 2 Pro. At around $159 to $180, this is an AI tracking gimbal that locks onto a subject and predicts where they'll move next, panning and adjusting in real time without anyone touching the controls. The task it replaces is the awkward one-handed phone holding while walking backward routine most people attempt when filming themselves or a friend in motion. Flow 2 Pro tracks the subject the way an experienced camera operator would, anticipating the next step before it's taken. It's a small gadget doing a job that used to require a second person with a steady hand, now handled automatically from a tripod nobody has to touch. It reads a shift in weight or a turn of the shoulders and starts adjusting before the subject has even committed to the new direction. Number 4. The Mudra Link Neural Wristband. Priced at around $199 and up, this wristband reads subtle electrical signals from finger and hand movement, letting a wearer control a phone, a computer, or a headset through small gestures instead of taps and swipes. The band anticipates intent from muscle activity a fraction of a second before the motion fully completes, which is a very different kind of sensing than a camera or a touchscreen has ever been able to offer. It replaces the phone task of physically touching a screen for every command, scrolling, tapping, clicking through menus one at a time. Mudra Link collapses that entire interaction into a flick of a finger the device already saw coming. It's one of the more literally predicts your next move devices on this list, because it's reading the signal your body sends before the movement itself is even finished. There's something quietly strange and impressive about a wristband that reacts to an intention rather than an action, closer to reading a decision than reading a gesture. 4 gadgets remain, and this final stretch is where the list stops feeling like clever consumer electronics and starts feeling like the opening scene of a film about 10 years from now. Number 3 shrinks an entire assistant down to something worn like jewelry. Number 3. The Bee Pioneer Edition. At around $49 to $59, Bee is a small wearable that listens throughout the day, capturing context, conversations, and reminders, then surfaces the right piece of memory back at the moment it's actually needed, without anyone having to dig for it. It works quietly in the background of an ordinary day, turning offhand comments and small commitments into something that resurfaces later without ever having been deliberately saved. It replaces the constant phone habit of searching back through messages, notes, and photos trying to reconstruct something said earlier in the day. B behaves like a lightweight second brain, holding on to the details a person's own memory would otherwise let slip. For its price, it's one of the most quietly ambitious devices on this list, a lightweight second brain that costs less than a nice dinner out. It doesn't try to record everything forever, it tries to guess, moment by moment, what a person is actually likely to want back later. Number 2. The Limitless Pendant. Priced at around $99 and up, this pendant captures and summarizes conversations throughout the day, turning meetings, casual chats, and passing ideas into organized, searchable context that surfaces again exactly when it becomes relevant. It's designed to sit against a shirt and disappear from a person's attention almost immediately, doing the remembering in the background while the wearer stays fully present in whatever conversation is actually happening. It replaces the phone's role as a scattered collection of half-finished voice memos and screenshots, consolidating everything into one continuous predictive record of a day's conversations. It's built to keep a person a step ahead of their own memory, rather than constantly playing catch-up with it. That's the quiet promise behind almost every gadget on this list staying a step ahead, instead of scrambling to keep up, and Limitless does it from something small enough to wear without a second thought. It resurfaces a name, a promise, or a detail from 3 weeks ago at the exact moment it becomes useful again, which is closer to how a Sharp Assistant works than how a typical gadget does. And now, the gadget that closes this list. Not the most expensive here, but the one built entirely around watching, predicting, and reacting to motion before a human ever gets the chance to. Number 1. The Xbox Go AI Camera. Priced at the premium end of the auto-tracking camera category, Xbox Go follows the subject automatically across a field, a court, or a backyard, panning and zooming without anyone standing behind it. Point it once, and it keeps predicting where the action is heading for the rest of the game. The phone task it replaces is one every parent recognizes, instantly handing a phone to someone else and hoping they hold it steady, only to get home to shaky footage that barely shows what happened. Xbox Go behaves like a camera operator who never gets bored, never looks away, and never misses the moment because they were checking a different notification. That's what makes it the natural device to close this list on. Every other gadget here predicts something quiet: a temperature, a heartbeat, a sentence, a gesture. This one predicts motion itself, tracking a moving target well enough that nobody in the stands even notices a machine is doing the job, adjusting its angle a half second before the play actually turns. 15 gadgets. One shared idea: the line between reacting to a request and anticipating one has almost completely disappeared. A thermostat that knows the temperature you want before you do. A ring that senses a bad night before you feel it. A camera that follows a play before you'd even think to point at it. None of it needed a research lab to reach an ordinary living room. It just needed someone willing to click buy. What's striking, looking back across all 15, is how little any of them announced themselves. A thermostat, a ring, a watch, a pendant small enough to forget you're wearing. The prediction is the extraordinary part. The packaging was built, deliberately, to feel completely unremarkable. None of these devices ask to be noticed, which might be the single biggest tell that the technology inside them has actually matured. There's also a quieter thread running underneath all 15, and it's worth naming directly. Prediction only works because these devices are paying attention constantly, in the background, long before a person ever asks a question out loud. A thermostat has to watch a household for days before it can guess correctly. A ring has to log a week of sleep before a bad night actually stands out. That patience, more than any single sensor or chip, is the real engineering trick tying this entire list together. It's also worth noticing how differently these 15 gadgets earn trust compared to a typical app notification. A phone buzzing with a suggestion feels like an interruption. A watch quietly noticing a change in resting heart rate feels like it was paying attention out of care, not out of an urge to grab focus. That distinction is probably why people keep wearing a ring or a pendant for months at a time, long after they've deleted half the apps that used to try the same trick and failed. Which of these 15 would actually earn a permanent place in your daily routine? And which ones still feel a step ahead of where you're ready to go? That's worth sitting with. Because the honest answer says more about how close this future already is than any single product on this list ever could. Every gadget in this video is linked in the description below. Prices shift constantly, so check current listings before deciding, since a number quoted today can move by next week without warning. And if you want to see where predictive technology goes next, subscribe, because the gap between guessing what you need and knowing it before you do is closing faster than most people realize.